So this could be a very interesting topic. In fact, even I would like to hear it when Seshadri talks. He's coming from a sales, say I come from engineering. It's a very two world apart. So I would like to see myself how sales presentation and how sales pitch on this virtualization is made out. I welcome Ramesh Seshadri to talk about virtualization.
Thank you, Kumleji, for the introduction. Let me give you a brief introduction about Mr. Seshadri. Ramesh Seshadri is an IT architect from IBM. He has over 30 years of experience in IT systems design, development, systems engineering, and IT services management. At IBM, he has worked as an engineer in processor and I/O development, as a system engineer in air traffic control systems development, as an architect, project manager, and a consultant in IBM Services Group, and recently as an IT architect in the software sales group. He has had an international assignments including IBM Germany and IBM India. Between 1998 and 2003, Mr. Ramesh Seshadri ji managed IT group as the CIO in StarTech Global Communications, Maryland. At StarTech, he architected and managed a largely proprietary IT systems infrastructure to support StarTech Global telecommunications business, including wholly owned subsidiaries in US, Canada, and Germany. He holds a master's in telecommunications systems from Johns Hopkins University, USA, and he has an MTech in computer science from Indian Institute of Technology, Chennai, India. He also holds a bachelor's in electrical engineering from Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. Now I will call upon Ramesh Seshadri to present on virtualization.
Thank you, Srinivas. Actually, I'm gonna have my slides in front of me so that I don't really need to look back to see what it is. Thank you. I'm looking forward to this. I mean, you know, when Prem Rangwani and we worked in the same group in IBM. He was telling me about the presentation that Ramesh you gave last year, was it? On
This
cloud computing.
2 months back.
Oh, 2 months back, is it? Okay. Yeah, the last meeting or the meeting? Last meeting. Okay. So at that time he was talking about, okay, we heard about cloud computing, and I had actually last year I had presented to one of the, it's a group here called they are the auditors group, and it's a national organization, but there's a chapter in DC that really has got IT auditors that really work mostly with federal government and agencies. I mean, so that group actually we had talked, I talked to them about virtualization last year, and this year I talked to them about social computing. So he said, would you be willing to come and talk about it? I said, sure. I mean, that's not an issue. The only problem is, I mean, you gave me a challenge now. I got to make sure that people don't sleep here, right? But, this is, this presentation, I mean, I have a set of slides. I'm going to talk through those set of slides. But if, there are questions, I would like to make it as interactive as possible. Stop me anytime. If I know it, I'll tell you. If I don't know, that's what it is. I can always find out and get back to you. I mean, I think now we have registered the whole group, right? So we have an email list, distribution list that we can all share. So if there are questions that I can't answer, and if others really have answers, please speak up. I mean, otherwise we can always really get back. I mean, one good thing about people who work for IBM, I mean, one good thing about it is in IBM there's always somebody or two who really know the answers for everything. I mean, so the challenge is to really find the right person who knows the right answer. I mean, so having said that, okay, so the topic is virtualization, right? So basically, virtualization is really not a new topic. I mean, this is something that's been around for a long time. I mean, I've been in the IT industry for a very long time. I got more than 30 years in it. You can see from my gray hair on the side, right? But virtualization was even a decade prior to my entry into the IT. I mean, so from that perspective, IBM has been a leader in virtualization. I mean, IBM has been a leader in computing, but even virtualization is something that IBM has been a leader in. So but what really is happening is, off late, because of some of the things that Ramesh really talked about, scalability, the issues in data centers, the usage of computing that is currently existing, the average utilization of the computers. So people really are looking at newer, innovative technologies to really get more out of what they really have, right? I mean, that's what virtualization is really going to do. I mean, typically, if you really look at mainframes really are very good for mixed workloads, right? Their average utilization is extremely high. I mean, 65 to 80% average utilization of CPUs is really common in mainframes. But when you come to Unix mid-size systems at X, the Intel platforms, pretty much, we engineer for peak load, right? So when you engineer for peak load, your average utilization is going to be extremely low. So 15 to 20% is a very good average utilization in the distributed side on the Unix platform. 5 to 15 is really what you really see in the X platforms or the Intel-based platforms. I mean, with in Linux, yeah, there is a little bit more, it's getting a little better, but it's still really extremely low. So majority of the times, the resources are really, sitting idle. So virtualization is really one way to really get more out of the resources that you already have. So first thing I want to really do is, let's look at what the analysts really are talking about in the, out in there. I mean, the biggest analyst group being Gartner, they come out with, every year they come out with 10 strategic technologies, right? I mean, everybody wants to really tell you what the next best thing is, right? So this year in 2010, I picked out the 3 technologies that really require virtualization as an enabling layer to make it happen. I mean, the 3 things that I picked out from the 10 things that they talked about is cloud computing, IT for green. I mean, green IT technology is really what they called it in 2009, but now they say IT for green. I mean, it's really not just the data center, because this year when they talk about IT for green, they even talk about people using telecommuting. You reducing your carbon footprint is really what they're talking about. Becoming green. So people using telecommuting, web conferencing instead of really traveling, buying an air ticket and traveling. Those are the kinds of things that IT for green really, is addressing. But virtualization and IT, green technologies in the data center is still really, the basis. That's where really you get the bang for the buck. And virtualization for availability is really what the third thing that they talk about. I mean, this is really using virtualization. Virtualization as a technology, even in 2008 and 2009 they had predicted, but in 2010 they really clearly say virtualization for availability. That means, with business resiliency, I mean, to keep your data centers up and running 24 hours, supporting the business, their needs and all that, using virtualization to make that happen is really what they are predicting as the new trend in 2010, right? So underlying all that, I mean, the layer that is really required is virtualization. That's what Ramesh, you also talked about it, right? So that's really, it's a basis for all of these kind of things, right? And if you some of the other sayings that from Gartner is virtualization will be the highest impact trend in infrastructure and operations through